Hello and welcome in section 2, creating your first neural network visualization. And we'll start with creating just the basic template, the basic web page for TensorSpace. And there are a couple of things that we have to keep in mind when creating a basic web page. And let's just get to it. Let's open a TensorSpace _HW hello world example from the source directory for this section. And this example is very similar to one that you can find inside the TensorSpace documentation, but instead of using the local version of the dependencies of the libraries, we are using CDN. And when you look at those dependencies, and dependencies in general, when it comes to working in JavaScript, those are difficult to handle often. And that's why a lot of developers, they're actually using NPM for that reason. Here we want to keep things really simple. We don't want to get into details about dependencies too much. But you have to still remember and kind of keep the dependencies in the right order. And also there are a few things that we have to keep in mind. So one of the first things that we need to include all the necessary libraries that TensorSpace actually using. And we're starting with the free library. This is the 3D rendering library that TensorSpace is using to show our neural networks. And then we also have tween library, and then we have the TensorFlow.js dependency. And here, this is one of those first things that we have to keep in mind, that here we are using 1.0 version. And this is non-default version of TensorFlow.js. So you'll notice that in all of those libraries, we are using a very specific versions that are recommended by TensorSpace creators. So here we have to keep in mind that if you are using TensorFlow.js, it has to be a 1.0 version or higher, okay? And then there's also the next dependency is kind of a tricky one because it hasn't been mentioned in the documentation, but it is included in examples. And this is a trackable controls piece of code that you can find in free library, and you have to include that if you want your code to work. This is very important because it is not actually well documented. And the last dependency is just the TensorSpace itself, and we'll pretty much just doing it after including all of the dependencies. We also, in this particular example, we are using jQuery, but we are using it just for convenience. Some of the things we can do with jQuery really quickly. So this is the first part. Just include the necessary libraries. And as I've mentioned in previous section, you can do that in many ways. You can use NPM, you can use Yarn, also you can use just CDNs in a traditional way. But keep in mind and make sure that you are using the right versions that are recommended by TensorSpace creators. And you can find that in TensorSpace documentation. And also keep in mind that those kind of things will probably change when it comes to version, because TensorSpace is really in early stage of development. So I'm pretty sure that those recommended versions of dependencies will change in the future. So keep that in mind. Okay, so this is the first part. We need to include all the necessary libraries. The other thing that we need to do is that we need to actually define the styling for our web page. And in this particular example, we want to just show the visualization on the whole page. So we just set up the HTML and body tags to just fill in all of the space. And then we're also creating a container. This is just our div where we put the actual neural network visualization. And we need to define div. And in this particular example, we just wanted to cover, we want this container to cover all of the whole page pretty much. So you need to remember to actually specify the dimensions of this container that TensorSpace will be using for visualization. If you don't do that, we'll have some default settings which can actually make the whole thing invisible, right? So keep that in mind. And of course, the last step is to actually create this container where we put our visualization. And we do that, of course, inside the body of our web page. And this is the basic structure of the web page that needs to be in place before we can even initialize TensorSpace and load all of the necessary elements.